Welcome back, families. We are going to look at adding with partial sums. The Common Core State Standards that matches this strategy is fluently add and subtract within 1,000 using strategies and algorithms based on place value, properties of operations, and or the relationship between addition and subtraction. The main part that we will be focusing on is place value, because that is how we break apart numbers to add in partial sums. So I'm going to show you two strategies that students have been taught, and they can pick which strategy they prefer to work with. Most students prefer the second strategy. So I'm going to start with 325 plus 164. The first strategy is to break up one addend. We're trying to use the vocabulary. We're not breaking up one number, we're breaking up one addend. So I'm going to break up the 164. So I'm going to start by adding the hundreds. I'm being precise in my work and adding an H for hundreds. I start with 325, and I'm going to break up 164. The 1 in 164 represents 100, the 6 represents 60, and the 4 represents the 4 ones. So I'm going to start by adding the hundreds, so 325 plus 100. When we get to this step, students should realize that we are only focusing on the hundreds place, because in 100 there's 0 tens and 0 ones. So this tens and this ones are not going to change. Only the 300 is going to change. So 300 plus 100 is 400, and the 25 stay the same. So I've added the hundreds place. I can check that off so I know I've added it. I'm now going to add the tens place. So partial sums comes into play because right now I have a partial sum right here of 425. It's a partial sum because it's only part of the sum. I've only added the hundreds place. So I'm going to move on to the tens place. 425 plus 60. So I tell students to check for, right now we're calling it weirdness. So if I look right here in the tens place, they should recognize any kind of weirdness happening if the tens place added up to more than 90, because that would involve regrouping. So if I check 20 plus 60, or they can think about 2 tens plus 6 tens is 8, 2 plus 6 is 8, 8 tens, there's not going to be any regrouping or any weirdness. If they do see it's more than 9, their little brain should go beep, 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 and they need to pay extra attention. So for right now, only the tens place is going to change because there are 0 ones, and the tens place is not more than 90. So we have 485. Right here is another partial sum because I've only added the hundreds place and the tens place, and I still have to add my ones place. So I label the letter O for ones. 485 plus 4 ones. Students should do the same thing here. They need to check, is there going to be any weirdness happening, because if the ones place is more than 9, they would have to do some regrouping or something else would happen. So the tens place would then change. 5 plus 4 is not more than 9. So we are not going to have to change the tens place. 485 plus 4, I'm looking at the ones. 5 and 4 is 9, so 489. Now 489 is not a partial sum. This is my total, or we've been calling it our final sum, because up here we have a partial sum and a partial sum. This is my final sum because if I go back and check, I've added 164, and I found my total sum. So this is the strategy where we're breaking up one addend. Now I'm going to show you the strategy for when we break up both addends. And this is the strategy that most students are starting to prefer. So in this, I'm going to break both addends. So I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to start by adding the hundreds. I'm going to pull the hundreds from both numbers. So 300 plus 100 equals 400. I go to the tens place. 20 and 60. 20 plus 60 equals 80. I go to my ones place. 5 plus 4 equals 9. Now if you notice, I made a different symbol underneath of each place value. I do that because it helps line up each place value. Some students might make the mistake of doing 20 plus 40 because they're not looking in the right place value. So if they put some kind of symbol underneath each place value, that should help keep them on track for each digit. So my final step, I have a partial sum right here, another partial sum right here, and another partial sum I need to circle, and I need to add the hundreds, the tens, and the ones together. So some students can do this mentally. They can just look at this and see 489. I encourage students to write this out up and down so they can add 489. Students have to be very careful that they're not adding like this. If you're practicing at home, I would purposefully do it like this without telling your child and see if they catch your mistake. So this is not right. That is not 900s, that is not 800s. So now when I add, this should be nice and easy. 0 plus 0 plus 9. 0 plus 8 tens, or 80. I cannot say 0 plus 8. 0 plus 8 tens, or 0 plus 80 is 80. 400 plus 0 plus 0. 489. There's my final sum. So most students prefer this way because it's pretty straightforward, and I think it's more simple for them. Let's try another problem. These two problems did not have any of that weirdness that we were talking about, where the tens place gets more than 90, or the ones place gets more than 9. So sometimes we just write that at the top or on the side of the board. We know that we're looking for more than 90 and more than 9 in the ones place or the tens place. So let's try one where we will have that happen. Okay, I'm going to start with the first strategy. I'm going to break up one addend. So I'm going to start with my hundreds. 483 plus, I'm adding the hundreds. That means only the hundreds place is going to change because of the zeros. 400 plus 200 is 683. I go to add my tens. 683 plus 20. Right here, if you're practicing at home, your student might say beep, 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 or wow, I found the weirdness. They might say something like that. Let's try and get this glare going. That's because if I look in the tens place, 8 tens plus 2 tens, that's more than 90. So I suggest writing it at the bottom. 80 plus 20 equals 100. This helps because students can see that even though we're adding the tens place right now, we have to change the hundreds place. That's because we got more than 90. Now we have a new group of 100. So this will no longer just be 600. We have to add this 100 in. So instead of 600, now I have 700. I'm adding my tens right here, so I have 0 tens now. And in my ones place, I had 3. When I go to add my ones place, I have 703 plus, in the ones, I have a 9. And again, they might say, oh, weirdness, weirdness. I can see the weirdness. So right here, we're looking at the ones place. 3 plus 9. I'm going to write down here, I know it's more than 9. 3 plus 9 is 12. That means that even though I'm adding in the ones place, I have this new group of 10. I need to add that into the tens place. Even though I'm just adding my ones right now, the tens is also going to change. 700s, I have one new group of 10. When I added my 3 plus 9, I got 2 ones. When I added the ones place, I got a new group of 10 and 2 ones. So my final answer is 712. So let's try that with a different strategy. I think students prefer the other strategy because when we get more than 90 or 9, they have to do this part right here, which can get confusing. So let's do 483 plus 229. I'm going to start in the hundreds. 400 plus 200 is 600. Again, I'm going to make a different mark. 8 in the tens place represents 80. 2 represents 20. And again, this is where they might say, weirdness, weirdness. 80 plus 20 makes 100, which is more than 90. This way is a lot easier to see it than it was before. They know now, oh, this is, even though we're in the tens, we're adding the tens, I have a group of 100, not just groups of 10. When I go to the ones place, I have 3 plus 9, which again is the same weirdness. Even though we're adding the ones place, we have tens and ones. So this again is where we have all the partial sums. Some students can add this in their head, which is okay, but I still recommend writing it out and lining up those place values. It's good practice for when we learn the regular algorithm. 0 plus 0 plus 2, 0 plus 0 plus 10, or one group of 10, and 600 plus 100 is 700 for my final answer. So those are the two strategies that we've been working on. So to review, we said that you can either break up one, you can break one addend, or we can break both addends. And that second strategy is the one that most students are preferring. It's a little bit easier to keep your work nice and organized. I hope this was helpful and get some good practice in, and thank you for watching.